My creepy coworker stalked me and showed up at my house uninvited with trash bags of her old junk she wanted to gift us. So I got her fired. I recently eloped with my husband. We purchased a home on the lake in a new subdivision and it is truly our dream home. We had closed on our house about a month prior to the elopement, so we already had moved our belongings in and purchased anything else we needed and sold any other belongings that we had in each of our apartments since the leases were up or almost up. Once some of my coworkers found out we had eloped, they wanted to throw me a shower. I politely told them I was perfectly fine with having a little party to celebrate but no gifts. When asked why no gifts, I told them honestly didn't need anything. Typically in my area, when a wedding shower or housewarming party is thrown, people gift toasters or sets of dishes, etc. Our home is furnished. We both have successful jobs. No gifts or monetary gifts please. But we would love to celebrate with you. Your presence is the only gift we want. That was basically the conversation. And it was received well. The party happened and all went well. Yesterday a coworker who had not come to the party randomly showed up at our home. I am not close with this person. We actually try to avoid each other most days because she seemed to be always pissed at me for no reason. Anyways, she arrived at our home with 3 large black trash bags that contained used houseware items from her home. She said she knew it was hard when you are first starting out and thought these items could help us while we get on our feet. She also made a comment about how she was going to have a garage sale but would rather just give them to someone who needed them. I told her I really appreciated the thought but that we were settled and maybe she should take her items and give them to someone who needed them because we were on our feet. She said I was just being modest. She ended up refusing to tell me how she got my address and also refused to take her gifts back with her. I told her we didn't need her items but if she wanted to leave them I would be happy to donate them for her. She said I was being rude. She did leave the bags though and I am taking them to a local consignment store that sells items and uses the money to help survivors of domestic violence. Update: HR was miraculously able to see me this morning. She also found the address issue concerning. I work in healthcare and I am also a patient where I work. Everything you access within our system is logged. So when they pulled her access records, it turns out my coworker had accessed my medical records 5 times within a week. It was never within her job duties to access my file. She had also accessed 2 other coworkers' files. They terminated her employment on the spot. Within our company, and I would imagine most, that is grounds for immediate termination. Her sister-in-law is also an employee there and she had accessed my records as well. Her employment was also terminated. Now I'm wondering if I need to seek legal action or even get a restraining order? My husband donated the items this morning. He said he didn't want them in the garage any longer than necessary. I had read him the comment about the items possibly having bugs or being bugged and now we are both paranoid. My nightmare mother-in-law told me that if I ever break her son's heart, she will unalive me. I told my husband and he went Hulk. My mother-in-law and I went out to dinner as my husband and my father-in-law were out at a concert together. They are from out of state and were staying with us for a few days. My mother-in-law is intense and does not hold back on overly displaying how much she loves her son. Well, at dinner after 3 martinis and me completely sober as my husband and I are TTC, she looks at me and goes, "If you ever break my son's heart I will effing unalive you." I mean it. And, his sister, will too. She watches a lot of Dateline. I was so stunned that she said this after 6 years together and understanding how strong our relationship is. Unfortunately, I was so stunned that I did not respond the way that I wanted and kind of babbled on something about not needing to be worried. I told my husband this and he was appalled. I just really can't believe the tone with which she said it, and while this is not the first time she has said it, it felt intense. Update: so flash forward to the day they left, mother-in-law begins to send text after text with the most effusive love and support you could imagine regarding her stay with us and our loving home. We ignore them because we are both working and also who cares? The plan was for my husband to call her after work. She knows something is up because now she is calling me. I let it go to VM, and having her husband who rarely messages me to see if I'll reply. My husband calls her as soon as he gets home and blasts her. While he was firm and calm, there was no mistaking that she was silent while he told her how unacceptable, disappointing, disturbing, and unnecessary that comment was. Her response? "That's just how I talk." My husband explains that no one speaks to his wife like that and no one understands her disjointed state of mind except for her. The call ends. She calls him back 10 minutes later and we ignore him. The following day rolls around. And she calls again, this time saying that she was joking and we took it the wrong way. He leans into her again and we decide that I will never be left alone with her. The hilarious thing about it is that dinner was the first time we were ever alone. My husband finally lets me know for the first time that he has understood his mom's game since high school and that it is partly the reason he moved out of state. For now, I am NC with her and it looks like my husband will be too. Monster in-laws are no joke. My boyfriend burned a candle that my deceased sister made for me because he finds me more attractive when I'm miserable. So, I'm walking away because I refuse to be his damsel in distress. 2 years ago, my sister was unalived in a car accident. Carrie and I had been extremely close. Despite a 7-year age gap between us, we enjoyed a lot of the same shows, we went to concerts together, we volunteered together, and I took it upon myself to guide Carrie like any big sister would do. In short, Carrie was my sister and best friend, and when she passed, I was a mess. The last craft Carrie and I made together was a set of candles. We bought the wax at a local craft store, and we both made each other a candle and decorated the jar it was in. That was the day before she was unalived. At her funeral, Carrie was buried with the candle I made her. The candle Carrie made me sits on my desk next to my favorite picture of her and me together at the beach, or it did until last week. I met my boyfriend about 1.5 years ago, about 6 months after Carrie passed. I wasn't looking for a relationship, I was still grieving my sister's death. But Eugene came along, and it was love at first sight. Eugene came into my life at a very low point and has always respected the sentiments I keep for my sister. Never asking me to take them down, always giving me space when I needed to cry. Eugene and most, if not all, of my friends and family know about Carrie's candle. With just a small part of my sister there. Eugene understood and was very supportive. Last week, we had a massive winter storm that knocked out power. We didn't have power for 3+ days. Now, we have probably 30+ candles in our house. I am a huge fan of sales, and when Bath & Body Works has a candle sale, I like to stock up and get a range of scents. We have candles scattered all over our house. In the room where my desk is, there are no candles aside from the one Carrie made me. None at all, and there never has been. This room is also downstairs, where Eugene doesn't spend much time, his desk is upstairs. When I arrived home from work last week, I noticed a bunch of candles burning in our living room. One of these candles was the candle that Carrie had made me. I burst into tears, and when Eugene heard me crying he came out from the bedroom and asked what was wrong. I was a wreck and couldn't get any words out. When he tried to calm me down, I shoved past him and locked myself in the room where my desk was and just cried. I don't know how he could be so stupid. He knew, and I thought he understood how sentimental the candle was and how much I cherished having a candle that my now deceased sister had spent time making with me just a day before she was unalived. I haven't been able to speak to Eugene since it happened. He has tried to explain why he did it, saying he needed candles to see, but I just can't wrap my head around it. He hadn't gotten into the large candle stash I have upstairs right by the living room where Carrie's candle was, but he went downstairs out of the way to grab the most sentimental, cherished item I have. The candle burned most of the day while I was at work. It is now melted and pretty much gone. I do still have the jar it was in, but I can't look at it without bursting into tears. Eugene says it was an accident, but I just don't believe that. Update: Eugene and I had planned to spend Thanksgiving with my parents, but that did not happen. On my way home from work, I stopped at a local craft store to pick up supplies to make a new memorial candle for Carrie. My parents and I spent a day remembering Carrie and making a new candle using some of the wax from the original candle. I also purchased a locket and had some of the remaining wax from the candle put inside, and the locket was welded shut by a friend. On the evening of my post, I got home, and Eugene said he wanted to talk. I agreed we needed to clear the air before Thanksgiving, so we sat in the living room and started to talk. I was not ready for what he told me. Eugene told me that when we first met, he was extremely turned on because I was essentially a damsel in distress. I just lost my sister recently, I was in a massive depression, I wasn't myself. And that turned him on both intimately and in a protective way. Over the past few months, I've started to become more myself. I got promoted at my job, joined a cooking class and got out more, and I've definitely moved away from being a damsel in distress in Eugene's eyes. He explained that he burned the candle hoping it would throw me back into that phase because that was the only time he felt he was attracted to me. That's right, he is not attracted to me unless I'm upset, crying, and a damsel in distress. When I prodded for more information, he told me that everyone prior to me that he had dated had either just experienced a loss or was in need of rescuing. Eugene told me he was no longer attracted to me. He dreaded having intimacy with me because he could no longer be the hero who was rescuing me, which is what turned him on in the first place. He didn't like to go in public with me because I had started to put myself together more, and that attracted the stares of other men that he saw as a threat. Eugene had a whole laundry list of things he hated doing now because I wasn't in a funk anymore. I told him that if that was the case, then we needed to break up. He agreed and said he would go stay with a friend until he could make new living arrangements. My name is the only one in our house, and I told him I would give him 60 days to vacate the house, which he agreed was fair. Over the past few weeks, I've spent a lot of time with my parents and with close friends. I don't feel like I've been dumped or broke up with someone. I just feel like me. Carrie's candle sits on my desk where the original was, and I wear the locket every day.
My coworker loves taking credit for other people's work, so I got him exposed. I work as a software engineer, and in my team, we follow the usual process of writing code, reviewing it, testing it, and deploying it. One of my coworkers, Steve, habitually took credit for other people's work in front of management. He isn't a bad developer, but he loves making it seem like he was doing more than he actually was. I'm quite introverted, so I don't usually speak up in meetings unless I have to. Calling someone out directly doesn't come naturally to me, so I usually just let things slide. During a big project, I spent days fixing a complicated bug. The problem ran deep, and the fix had to work across different parts of the code. If you hadn't actually worked on it, it was pretty hard to follow. After a lot of testing, I finally got it done. At the next team meeting, Steve jumped in and explained my fix as if it was his before I could even say a word. He kept saying things like we decided to. And our approach was to. Making it sound like he was the person behind it. I was annoyed, but I kept quiet. The next day, another bug popped up in the same code area. Our manager turned to Steve and said, "Since you worked on this, can you patch it?" And that's when the fun started. Steve froze. The thing is, if you didn't actually write the fix, it wasn't easy to understand how it all fits together. He had no idea where to even begin. He tried stalling and even sent me a message asking if I could explain the logic of the code real quick. I told him that I was busy at the moment and that I would catch up with him later on. I didn't. After 5 hours of struggling, he finally admitted in the team chat and wrote something like, "Actually, I didn't write this part, maybe Op can take a look?" I replied, "Of course, I'll check it." 10 minutes later, I had it fixed. Our manager came over and congratulated me. We were chatting for a bit, and before heading off, he deliberately commented about how great it was having someone who actually understood what we were working on. Steve didn't say a word. F you, Steve.
An entitled Disney mom cuts the line with her husband and kids, but I speak up to the ride operators. They get kicked off the ride, and the whole line erupts in cheers. Today, I visited Disney for the first time since I was 9 years old. Super fun day, lines longer than I remember, but maybe I was just excited back then. My friend and I discovered the single rider lanes and took advantage of that due to the shorter wait times, and it did not matter to us to ride separately. As we were waiting in that line, a family of 4 walked through the middle of the line holding hands. Several people are disgruntled and asking what they are doing. Mom claims they forgot something on the ride. They make it to the part of the ride where single riders, fast pass riders, and the original line are all in a similar area. One of the ladies behind me screams, "What did you forget?" Everyone in the single rider lane is fuming as we all realize she's just waiting to get on the ride with her kids. They get shuffled into the pre-ride movie area before my friend and I. We are shocked no one brought it to any of the staff's attention. Meanwhile, all the single riders are trauma bonding over this lady's boldness and entitlement. So when my friend and I get shuffled into the pre-ride movie area, I tell one of the staff what the lady and her kids look like, and what she did. He says, at this point, since they are already in the line to board the car, he can't do much. We make it to the car boarding line, and lo and behold, there's the lady and her 2 kids. I stop yet another employee and explain the situation. She says she will let someone know but walks in the opposite direction of the rider operators. Then, one of the kids runs up to a man directly behind my friend and I, pulls on his arm, and says, "Come on, Dad." We turn around and Dad is behind us. He refuses to join his family, probably because he heard everyone in the line complaining about what they did. So everyone starts speaking louder, the whole line. What a terrible example to set for your children. What makes them feel so entitled? Everyone is waiting the same, some people for hours. Why do they think they're special? Why lie to get what you want? The whole line is loudly speaking so these people know exactly what we think of them. Dad continues to hang back and let people get in front of him as he hangs his head in shame and his family inches closer to the front of the line. I had enough at that point. I talked to the people in front of me and asked if I could go let the ride operators know what happened, because I'll be damned if they are getting on this ride. I asked the people in front of me to let me warn the ride operators, and they were all happy to step aside. Mom is blocking the walkway because they are next up. I tap her on her side and say excuse me and stare her down. She slides over without a word. I then tell the ride operator this lady and her 2 children cut the entire line through the single rider's line, claiming she forgot something. You can ask anyone in this line. She gives me the most evil, disgusted, shocked glare. I walk back to where my friend was, and another woman goes up to the line operator to verify my story. Disney mom is trying to say both of us are lying. Then everyone in line starts yelling and telling the same story, determined not to let her or her kids on the ride. They were eventually escorted out the side door and everyone in line clapped. My toxic family is calling me a bad person for not attending the wedding of my ex-fiancé and cousin. So, I am cutting them off. I was engaged to marry Travis. But a couple of weeks before the wedding was supposed to take place, he said that he didn't want to get married. I asked him if he was cheating and he said no. He told me that most of his friends were already marrying or starting families, so he thought it was time to settle down, but he had just realized that he didn't want to do it. Suffice it to say, the wedding was cancelled and that was the end of our relationship. It's been 3 months since that happened. Things haven't been exactly great, but I've managed. Well, some days ago, I received an invitation to the wedding of my cousin Taylor. Imagine my surprise when I read it and saw that my ex-fiancé was the groom. I had only seen them barely interact during family meetings. I hadn't noticed any clue that pointed to anything happening between the two of them all this time. Some info about my cousin. She's what some people would call a free spirit. She doesn't have a conventional job, she works as an artist. She dyes her hair in unusual colors, sometimes blue, sometimes green, and dresses extravagantly. Once she wore a white robe, another time she wore a black leather jacket and spiked boots. She says that she doesn't like following society's rules and that she only follows her own code. Immediately, I called my parents. I asked them if they knew something about Taylor's relationship with Travis. And yes, they did, and they hadn't intended to tell me because they figured out there would be no positive outcome to it, but they also made it clear that they expected me to come to the wedding anyway to show support to my family. At this point, I lost it and shouted that they were delusional if they believed that I would go to the wedding of my cheating liar ex and his manic pixie dream girl. They said that I couldn't keep holding on to my hatred and resentment forever and that I needed to let go, but I hung up. My extended family has been blowing up my phone since then, saying that I'm a bad person if I don't attend. Update: I'll be distancing myself from my parents and extended family, at least for a while for the former, indefinitely for the latter. I also told my friends about the whole situation. And they were even more pissed off. I told them about going on vacation during the week of the wedding, and we've already started making plans. But something else happened in the last few days. I received a call from Travis. He asked me if we could meet and talk. I know it was probably stupid of me, but I accepted. We met in a public place, and I told him I wanted to know exactly what was going on between him and Taylor. This is what he told me. First, he made sure to emphasize that he had never cheated on me. Not sure if I believe him, but I let him talk. He told me that he too felt bad about our relationship's end, that on a night out he just happened to end up in the same place as my cousin. They started talking, and one thing led to another and he proceeded to have a middle-age crisis with her. The only reason he's getting married to her is because she's pregnant, and he was afraid that she would just run away and he'd never get to meet his child. After that talk, we went our separate ways. He wished me good luck, and I said the same. As soon as I came back home, I blocked his number. So at the end of the day, I'm left with more questions than answers. But whatevs, that's no longer my problem. My boyfriend said I was embarrassing him while giving birth to our baby because I was screaming, so I told him he could stay embarrassed. I was done with him. We have been in a relationship for 1 year and we had a baby boy last week. I had a natural birth and my boyfriend was there throughout the whole process. I screamed a lot and each time I did he whispered something like, "Can you stop screaming? You're really embarrassing me." I also threw up a few times and I saw him cover his face in shame. When I held the midwife's hand for comfort he whispered, "Let go of her, stop being so embarrassing." He also said that my birthing position was embarrassing and called me a few vulgar names. I'm really upset about his behavior that day, especially when it was when I needed his support the most. When I try to talk to him about it he denies ever saying it and that I'm being silly. I spoke to my mom about this but she is the very traditional type and although she said his behavior is wrong, I should try couple counseling first. I really don't think he is going to listen to me when I suggest getting help but I'll try. I am also going to talk to my public health nurse. Edit. I have since tried to discuss the option of couple counseling to him but to no avail, which didn't surprise me. My mom has agreed to let me stay there until I can find a new place for myself and baby. I haven't said anything to him yet. I've been advised not to so I'm still planning out how I am going to take the next step. 3 days later, I spoke to my mom, who recommended couple counseling and if that didn't work then I would be allowed to live with my parents. I then approached him when he came home and gave him an ultimatum. I told him he can either continue to ignore that he acted horribly during the birth and other numerous times, or he can admit to how he has treated me and apologize and get counseling, but obviously he continued to gaslight me and got extremely angry to the point where he was screaming at both me and the baby. He ended up storming out to his best friends. My mom came round after he left and said he's an asshole and even though she doesn't agree with single parenting, she thought anything would be better than staying with him and enabling his behavior. He has tried to visit me and the baby since as he guessed I was at my mom's. Both my mom and I have told him it's over and that we're leaving the rest down to the courts. I will be telling my solicitor everything so who knows what the custody arrangements will be. I'm just glad that myself and my baby are out of there and I can finally enjoy being a mother. Yesterday I went shopping and bought what I wanted instead of what he wanted and I never felt so free since before I met him. To many people that will sound ridiculous, but quite frankly he controlled every single aspect of my life. However, I am planning on going to therapy as I feel like the bad experience I had at my birth as well as his abuse in other areas has left a profound effect on me. I also called a few domestic abuse hotlines and they gave me some brilliant advice. What was weird was the best friend he went over to see actually contacted me yesterday to say how happy he is to hear that I'm leaving him. He said he noticed how unhappy he made me and how disrespectful he is around women as a whole, and that the abuse didn't exist just towards me but to his colleagues also. So it's good to know that I have a few people on my side. No doubt things will be constantly changing from now until the foreseeable future, and I am terrified, but the main thing is that I'm away from him and me and my son are safe, and that I'm feeling empowered enough to know that the way he treated me was 100% wrong and that he will pay the right price as long as I fight for it.
My sister-in-law has a habit of swapping her cheap gifts, so I gave her a lesson she'll never forget. Today was my nephew's 13th birthday, and it was the day I finally got back at my sister-in-law for her antics. Since the gifts were opened when the extended guests had left, sister-in-law had a habit of swapping name tags on the gifts with her cheap, last-minute finds. She has done this several times to me because I was the busiest in the family. I just learned when my nephew told me that although he likes the toy car I gave him, he was expecting me to give him a new pair of shoes like his aunt. The thing is, I did give him a pair of shoes because I know that he needs them for a marathon. I asked what his aunt gave him, and it was precisely what I purchased. I chalked it up then because I didn't want to ruin sister-in-law's name, and maybe it was just because of some kind of mistake. But she had been successful with a gift I sent over when I was out of town and couldn't attend my nephew's birthday a few years ago again, and I thought she might try to pull her usual trick. So, I got my neighbor in on this, gave him a box with bright yellow wrapping, and asked him to brag about how he got lucky in finding this super rare Star Wars Lego set while sister-in-law stood near, knowing the gifts would be opened later when he'd had left. As expected, sister-in-law decided to generously help set up the gifts and the decorations. I caught her eyeing the box with the yellow wrapping, and before long, she accidentally knocked over a few, quickly swapping the tags. After the party, my nephew eagerly tore into the presents. The look on sister-in-law's face made me wish we had some reality TV cameras set up for this. When nephew opened the box with the bright yellow wrapping with her name on it, out came a few packs of cigarettes and a box of contraceptives, with a post-it note reading, "HB. You're a man now." Sister-in-law was speechless, and so were the rest of the family. She tried to play it off as a prank, and she wanted her nephew to be prepared for adulthood. She was red as a ripe tomato the rest of the night. Edit. Many of you are asking about how sister-in-law never got caught. Nobody ever discovered that she swapped gifts since she targeted people who were not present at the opening time. My suspicions only started when it happened to me. I did talk to her when I found out about the gift I sent over a few years ago, but she brushed it off as a mistake while arranging the presents. My fiancé told me that he loves me less after I gave birth to our son. So I had him pack his bags and kicked him out. I'm 6 months postpartum with my beautiful son, my first and only. I've been with my fiancé going on 6 years, and I'm shattered. When I was pregnant, I started to notice my fiancé withdrawing from me emotionally and physically. For my birthday, 1 week before our son was born, he got me a Starbucks gift card, $25. That was the gift. For Mother's Day, he handed me a dead bouquet he left in the garage overnight without water and a card that should have been made out to his own mother, not the mother of his child. We've had a dead bedroom since my pregnancy. I've told him many times that I'd like us to work on that. To no avail, he continues to lay in bed watching TikToks while I get our son down for bed, and that's that. Last night, I finally pushed for more direct communication around this feeling. Why is he no longer interested in intimacy? After he skirted around some excuses, he finally told me, "I think you love me more than I love you." He explained that there are levels to love and that maybe we just are on different levels. I asked, "Has it always been that way?" To which he replies, "I guess I just love you less now." To say I'm shattered is kind of an understatement. If we're being honest, I saw it coming. I could feel it. I've spent my pregnancy and the last 6 months being the sole provider for our child. I juggle our baby while working from home. I do it all while my fiancé is out of town for work most of the time. He says infidelity isn't a part of this, but who knows? Our relationship was never like this before our son. Even though it's not necessarily my fault, I feel like I already failed as a mother and wonder what my son will think as he gets older. My fiancé stated he's hopeful we work through this, but I said I'm sorry, I can't just make you love me more. What's been said can't be unsaid, you know. 6 months postpartum, and I'm about to be a single mom at 27. Update, I decided to rip the band-aid off and end things. Engagement has ended. The relationship ended. All of it. After dinner, our son was taking a nap and I asked my fiancé when he planned on moving out. Long story short, I had him pack a bag and stay elsewhere tonight. He will start packing his belongings tomorrow. I realize that I can't do this. I can't forgive being told he loves me less. That's not the example I want to set for my child as he grows. Love isn't something you need to beg for, work for, or pretend. To make it worse, I asked my fiancé if he felt this way when he got engaged last August, to which he said yes. I've just been lying to myself. This man had a baby with me and knew that his heart wasn't in it, but he didn't have the guts to tell me. So here we are. 6 years down the drain. I'm not sure if the reality of a child hit him, if infidelity is involved on his part, or if he lost attraction to me in the process of being pregnant, but I'll never know. And that's okay. I'm the primary provider for our son, and that won't change. Our son, 6 months, will remain living with me full-time, and my fiancé is welcome to visit the son. We will work out an agreement to ensure he fulfills his financial obligation to our child, and I'm not afraid to pursue the legal route if needed. I'm 6 months postpartum. This is my first. And wow, it's been hard, but now I'm officially doing it solo. I'm doing the damn thing, and I'm going to do my best. Wish me luck.
My father's girlfriend assaulted me because she was jealous that I had a baby. But my father refused to break up with her, so I took his right to be a grandfather. My father and I have always had a pretty good relationship, but to be honest, it has been strained since I had my first child about 9 months ago, as I've not felt he's been very kind or supportive towards me. My husband, baby, and I went to visit him recently. He lives in a vacation spot, so we visit every winter. His girlfriend, who he's been with for a few years, moved in with him last year. His girlfriend and I have always gotten along and I really loved her. I was prepared to allow my son to call her grandma even, and encouraged my dad to propose when he told me he was thinking about getting married to her. To my surprise, only 3 days into our visit, his girlfriend came home from work and lost it at me, and my dad witnessed the entire thing. Screaming at me, accusing me of ridiculous things, saying horribly mean things to me. I have to spare you the details because otherwise the post will be so long. Still, essentially, she is an almost 60-year-old woman who has never married or had children but always wanted to, and it seemed like she was angry that I have a child and she never did, and was using me as a punching bag as a result. I felt like I was on the school playground and getting bullied by the mean girl. Eventually, she got so angry that she came an inch from my face, screaming insults at me, waving her long fingernails in my face. This is where my dad stepped in and had to literally grab her arms and hold her back to prevent her from attacking me, but she kept escaping him and going after me, screaming at me, chasing me around the apartment. At one point, she started aggressively running toward the room where my baby was sleeping, screaming her head off and trying to open the door to wake up my baby. My dad grabbed her at the last second and prevented her from doing this, but when she tried to go into my baby's room like that, I knew there was no coming back from this and I would never be willing to be near her again. She also put her hands on me aggressively after I told her not to touch me. Throughout this whole altercation, I did not scream at her or touch her at all. I tried my best to defend myself the entire time calmly, and my dad, who witnessed it, agreed I handled the situation as well as anyone could have. My dad felt her behavior was completely out of line, mean, aggressive, and scary. Since the incident occurred, I have not seen her, and I made it clear to my dad that I will never go near this woman again and cannot let her near my child again. When she was running towards his room, it was honestly one of the scariest moments of my life because I felt like she might try to hurt him. I even considered calling the police and filing assault charges against her, but decided not to, as I do not like dealing with police typically. The problem I am having with my father is that he has told me that he loves this woman and does not want to break up with her, even though he witnessed the entire event and agrees her behavior was unbelievably horrible, aggressive, and scary. As a mother myself, I cannot understand why he would want to stay with the person who assaulted his child. If someone did that to my son, I would leave them immediately and never see or speak to them again. I am so disappointed in my father that he would want to stay with this woman after this. The entire thing was traumatizing for me, and this happened several weeks ago, and I've barely recovered. I told my dad that if he stayed with her, I would really have no choice but to stop having a relationship with him as well, and that also meant he cannot have a relationship with my son, his only grandchild. He says it is unfair for me to make him choose between her and I, and to that I told him she is the one making him choose because she's the one who attacked me. Update: my father started to refuse to speak about his relationship with his girlfriend to me. He would say his relationship is his personal business and refused to answer any of my questions regarding whether they were staying together or not. I found out through my brother that my dad took his girlfriend on a tropical fancy vacation a couple of weeks ago. When I confronted my dad about it, he blatantly lied to me, saying he had not gone on vacation with her. Eventually, after multiple times of me telling him I didn't believe him, he finally admitted that they did go on this vacation together. Anyway, my dad has been evasive, lying to me, refusing to answer any of my questions honestly. As a last-ditch effort, I suggested we go to counseling together, which we did yesterday, and all he did was speak about how he loves this woman and did not seem to care at all about the fact that she terrorized me. He kept saying that I was giving him an ultimatum, which is unfair, and that I should just want him to be happy in his relationship. It was a horrible counseling session, and I will not be wasting my time and energy going forward with that. It is abundantly clear that he is going to stay with his girlfriend, and I have decided to end my relationship with him. Added to add, I did file a police report after my last post as well. The officer who took the report told me candidly that it was not worth it to pursue pressing charges against his girlfriend, as I did not experience any physical injury. However, there is at least a record of what happened in case things should escalate and his girlfriend behaves violently again. I do truly fear for my father's safety having this woman in his house, and I've told him that. I kissed my brother, and now my fiancé wants to break up with me because he accuses me of being in love with my brother. Please send help. Me, 25, and my brother, 17, have been close since childhood. It wouldn't be a lie to say that our main love language is physical touch. I see him as my baby. He's adorable and such a sweet kid. We hug and cuddle, and he also relies on me emotionally. Now comes my fiancé. We've been together for 3 years now, and he knows that I'm close with my brother. I moved in with my fiancé last year, so I don't even get to meet my brother that often, so every time I meet and hug him, my fiancé always makes some passing remarks like, "Whoa there, you guys sure are close." I just roll my eyes since I thought he was joking back then. But 5 days back, it was my mom's birthday, and it's been 4 months since I've seen my family IRL, aside from video calls, as we live in different cities. It was a small party with relatives, and I was happy to be there. We were planning to stay for the night and leave the next morning. At night, my fiancé and I were up watching a movie when my brother knocked and came inside asking if we could talk. My fiancé gave me a side eye, but I got up and followed him. I asked him what was wrong. He said he missed me and that he's been having a hard time at school since he's struggling with his studies. He's a smart kid. Unlike me, he's at the top of his school, and I knew he always had stress issues. He also mentioned how his friends are being very rude to him in one way or the other, and this made him cry while talking about it, so obviously, I was consoling him. We talked for around 1 hour before I hugged him, saying everything would be fine. This is when my fiancé walked in and asked, "Are you guys done?" He sounded upset, and he could have phrased that better, but after a few more minutes, I got up, kissed my brother on the cheek, and told him we could continue to talk tomorrow. But I think hell broke loose once I got inside the room with my fiancé. He started telling me how gross I was for kissing my brother. He said he was already upset that I had hugged, cuddled, and had my brother lay on my lap on other occasions, but now the kissing was the final nail in the coffin. He said I prioritize my brother more than I do for him, which is not true. I hardly see my brother since I moved out. He also said that I'm not seeing my brother as my family and our relationship is not normal. He literally told me you guys are in love and is having an affair. And that he hates how we touch each other since it comes off as sexual? I'm aware a lot of siblings don't do physical touch, but it doesn't say anywhere that doing it is wrong. I don't understand what is sexual about this. Please help me understand. This made me feel so awful, so I told him that my then father, separated now, was abusive to my mom, me, and my brother as kids, which often made me feel like I should protect him, and that's all there is to it. But he didn't even let me explain before he just left the room. The next day, he called his mom and said he wanted to break off with me. I talked to her myself, and she said I should stay away from my brother if the marriage has to happen since it could affect my fiancé mentally. As he is a single child, he wouldn't understand how my siblings feel. She said it's better for both of us. Now, I'm so conflicted because I don't understand what I did wrong. I never felt like I did anything to warrant a breakup. I love my brother and I love my fiancé too. I knew my fiancé always made backhanded remarks about my brother before, but it never crossed my mind he took it so seriously until that day. Please, am I the a-hole? Am I acting weird with my brother? If I am, please tell me what I can do to not be like this that wouldn't hurt my brother in the process too? A creepy male nurse told me he thought I'd look cute in a little black dress and gave me red lipstick as a gift, so I took my mother to the hospital and now he is screwed. I, 16, have stage 2 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Whenever I go into the center for treatment, I generally have the same nurses/techs treating me. I don't know if it's the same in all oncology places, but you can just see that a lot of the staff feel bad about all the kids who are sick here. They do a lot of stuff with us, giving us stuffed animals, stickers, and ice pops when I don't feel like puking from my infusions. They are just generally trying to make us feel better because I guess no one likes to see sick kids. Anyway, I thought for a while that this was what my guy nurse was trying to do. But recently I've been thinking that's not quite it. He gives me a lot of compliments on my appearance, but they've become focused a little on my body. He told me he thought I'd look cute in a little black dress, and he gave me red lipstick as a gift, too. Which is weird. He's also been getting more handsy. I was puking at my last session, and while he was pulling my hair back, one of his hands was on my chest. I was not in a place to tell him to fuck off, but it was so uncomfortable. My mom hasn't seen it because we've gotten to a point where she just has to drop me off and pick me up after. I'm just not exactly sure what I should be doing, and I want to scream about it. I'm also sad because this nurse genuinely made me feel special and cared for, and it suddenly clicked in my head that he's a creep. Also, what do I even do? Like, I obviously can't stop my cancer treatments. I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. Update 1. So I had another session of chemo today, and poop kinda hit the fan. I didn't tell my mom what was happening, I got too nervous and chickened out. I did ask her to come with me to my appointment today, and she did. As some of you said, he acted differently when she was there. He didn't touch me at all and didn't compliment me how he usually does. There was a period of a few minutes, though, where she left to go to the bathroom and he got close to me and commented about how it was weird my mom was here today and how he liked our alone time. He got close to me and sat on the edge of the bed I was in for my sessions. Then he brushed my hair behind my ear and got close, like the way you see in romance movies before people kiss, and I was so uncomfortable. Also, thinking back, that was a dumb move on his part. Anyway, thank fuck for my mom's timing because she walked in with another nurse she was having a conversation with and they both saw what was happening. I think we all froze for a second before my mom cursed him out. I think she would have decked him if I didn't grab her hand before she could. Anyway, I refused to talk about it for the rest of my infusion session, but afterward, a bunch of people were asking me questions and they said something about a report. My mom threatened to call the cops or sue or something. I don't know how serious she was or if she was just mad. But yeah, my mom said that she'd make sure someone came with me for all my sessions in the future. The nurse lady who was in charge said she'd personally be my nurse whenever she worked and that if she weren't working, she'd have a woman she trusted with me. They also let me pick out a stuffed animal because I've always really liked them. When we got home, my big sister practically went feral and bounced between lecturing me about noticing inappropriate behavior and threatening bodily harm to the nurse. She was mad that my mom didn't punch him. My mom was a little mad that I didn't tell her why I really wanted her to come before, but it doesn't seem like she's really mad. She keeps hugging me and telling me that she loves me. So yeah. Problem probably resolved. My husband told me that he doesn't want anything to do with our daughter and missed her birth. Now, he desperately wants me to take him back. My husband, 26, and I moved states away for his work last year. It was fine, at first, because I wanted to support him, but immediately, the thought grew inside of me that I had no one there except for him. His baby mama, 38, and his kid, 9, let's call her Emma, moved along with us. For context, he was 17 when Emma was born, and his baby mama was his teacher. I knew him in high school and helped him with Emma when he had to take care of her on his own. That's what made us fall in love, and eventually, we got married. Up until 4 months ago, our relationship was perfect. We were 8 months pregnant with our baby boy and we were beyond happy. Then, one night, we were chilling on the couch when he got a phone call from his baby mama. She was shouting into the phone so he stepped into a different room so as to not disturb me. When he ended the call, I was met with a completely different side of him. You see, sometimes, when my husband has to work and it's his turn to look after Emma, he leaves her with me. Emma and I bake together, do homework, watch movies, and have conversations about school. It never went beyond that. But, somehow, Emma told him that I'd been hitting her when he wasn't here. And he believed her. I understand why he instantly took her side, she's his baby, and, honestly, I would too. But I kept telling him that I had never laid a hand on Emma for the life of me, but he didn't believe me. Instead, he grabbed his car keys and vanished out of the door right after telling me that he wanted nothing to do with me or my baby. I was devastated. I called him countless times, and I didn't stop until he blocked me. I was left alone in a house and a state that I had no business being a part of, and I was so scared. Less than a month later, he never came back. I went into labor. I didn't want him to miss the birth of our first child, so I went as far as calling him from a stranger's phone, but as soon as he realized it was me, he hung up. Nonetheless, I gave birth to my beautiful boy and when I came home from the hospital, my husband was there, and he looked completely worse for wear. Apparently, he was informed by the hospital staff that my father had paid for the room we booked, and he had connected the dots. And when he refused to go check up on me, his daughter told him that she wanted to go see her new brother and eventually confessed that she was lying just to get her mommy and daddy back together, not that they ever were. He apologized profusely and pleaded to see our son but I couldn't handle it. I told him to leave the house and that I didn't want to see his face again. Now, I have moved back home, and I have served my husband with divorce papers, he never signed them. He desperately wants me to take him back, but I don't know if I want to. That day, he broke my trust and established where his priorities lie between my son and Emma. Now that I know where he stands, I never want my son to be mistreated by his father. What bullet did you not dodge? 1. My older cousin rewarded me with a glass Coke bottle when I was 2. It caused excessive scarring inside my womanhood. When I gave birth to my first daughter, the scars reopened and my daughter came out doused in red. 2. When I was 17 my mom met a guy who was deaf. She really loved him and he was really nice to her, so for his birthday I planned to learn ASL and surprise him. I became very proficient very quickly, but that unfortunately became my downfall, as I soon realized that he and my mom were dirty talking in ASL around me. I had to sit there and pretend I didn't know they were talking about what a good girl my mom was last night, and about how they find it so hot they're doing this in front of me and I have no idea. 3. My boyfriend upon meeting my 98-year-old great-grandmother for the first time started talking to her about why he believes the Holocaust was fake. My grandmother was an Auschwitz survivor. 4. When my ex-wife parked her car in the middle of the street and tried to abduct my kids from their school, getting into an actual fight with school security, forcing my kids into her car, and driving to her apartment where she parked sideways, on the grass, on the adjacent complex front lawn, refusing to open the door when the cops showed up only to fight 3 cops when they finally got in the house, resulting in her arrest on 5 felony counts and a breathalyzer reading of .41. The crazy part was when she could not fathom why the courts decided I was the best choice for permanent custody. 5. When I was 13, I made a friend on Farmville who was named Stacy and was my age. We arranged to meet up at a park, and I snuck out without telling my parents. Stacy turned out to be a 57-year-old man with a wife and kids. He took me behind the park and did whatever he wanted. I never told a soul. My father's girlfriend assaulted me because she was jealous that I had a baby. But my father refused to break up with her, so I took his right to be a grandfather. Dad took his girlfriend on a tropical fancy vacation a couple of weeks ago. When I confronted my dad about it, he blatantly lied to me, saying he had not gone on vacation with her. Eventually, after multiple times of me telling him I didn't believe him, he finally admitted that they did go on this vacation together. Anyway, my dad has been evasive, lying to me, refusing to answer any of my questions honestly. As a last-ditch effort, I suggested we go to counseling together, which we did yesterday, and all he did was speak about how he loves this woman and did not seem to care at all about the fact that she terrorized me. He kept saying that I was giving him an ultimatum, which is unfair, and that I should just want him to be happy in his relationship. It was a horrible counseling session, and I will not be wasting my time and energy going forward with that. It is abundantly clear that he is going to stay with his girlfriend, and I have decided to end my relationship with him. Edit to add, I did file a police report after my last post as well. The officer who took the report told me candidly that it was not worth it to pursue pressing charges against his girlfriend, as I did not experience any physical injury. However, there is at least a record of what happened in case things should escalate and his girlfriend behaves violently again. I do truly fear for my father's safety having this woman in his house, and I've told him that.
When did you realize the phrase "people can change" is actually true? Growing up, my mom was an alcoholic and a narcissist. She would only provide enough food and water to feed my older brother, but instead of embracing his role as the golden child, he'd wait until she wasn't looking and share his plate with me. And as soon as I finished high school, he let me move in. Back then, I was so filled with anger that I just wanted to ruin her, but I knew I didn't stand a chance unless my brother helped me. So we hatched a plan to take away what she loved most: alcohol. That night, I snuck into the house and bagged every single bottle, before taking all the money from her alcohol savings jar and, finally, telling every liquor store to never sell her alcohol again. Her health was so bad that leaving the neighborhood wasn't even an option. And like clockwork, a day later she sent me a PayPal request for $50, which I ignored. And after 3 days came the angry texts, but I blocked her as soon as I saw the words selfish and ungrateful. Luckily, I didn't hear about her again, until a month later, when my neighbor texted me to say he saw her at an AA meeting for the first time ever. My mom has disappointed me so many times that I was waiting for her to fall back into her old ways. So me and my brother were both surprised when, 6 months later, I was sent a photo of my mom receiving her 90-day sober chip at AA. For once, she didn't look like a cancer patient. She was somewhat intact. But the real shock came a few months later, when, suddenly, I saw a notification from my mom. It was a message I would have bet my life on never receiving. She said sorry. I showed my brother straight away, and we both sat in silence for almost 10 minutes, processing how our revenge plan had accidentally led to my mom's rehabilitation journey.
I found out that I am Diana to my husband's Camilla, and I was the only one who didn't realize that I am in an arranged marriage. Now, I think my life is shattered. I've been married to my husband for 2 years now. I noticed on social media that there are always likes from a teenage boy on posts that he puts up about me. I thought it was a bit weird that he was friends with a teenager, so I looked through the photos I could see on his profile. There are a few with my husband from about 8 to 10 years ago, as well as another woman. When I asked my husband, he said the boy was his ex-girlfriend's son. He explained that they were very serious, but that she had ended up getting married to someone else. This seemed odd, so I asked my mother-in-law about her the next time I saw her. My mother-in-law rolled her eyes and said, "Don't mention Val. I am so glad that you came along because that girl was so bad for him. She was unemployed, a single mother, and just very trashy. We never would have accepted her. I am very successful career-wise and well-established. My family is very prominent in the community and well-regarded." The more I thought about it, the more it really felt like my background had more to do with things than anything. I asked my husband about Val again and asked if he would have married her if not for his family. He said that one of the biggest reasons she chose someone else was because his family refused to accept her. When I asked what was different about me, he responded, "She was Camilla, and you're Diana." I asked him if that meant he would marry her if anything happened to me. He shook his head, laughed, and said I was being ridiculous and that he didn't think like that. I told him I wanted him to remove and block his ex and her son from his social media immediately and to stop communicating with them. He's told me that he has a cordial relationship with both of them and doesn't feel it's fair of me to ask him to cut them out. I'm starting to doubt every interaction I ever had with him. When I bring it up to him, he gets upset and tells me to stop dwelling on his past. I wish that I'd never known this because I feel like all of my happiness has been drained. Update: I sat down with my husband and told him that this whole Val thing was really bothering me, that I'd never heard her name before for someone he held in such high regard. He explained that she had cheated on him and had married the guy she cheated with. They stopped speaking for a while, but they started being cordial again as she was having problems in her marriage and through her divorce. He swears in his life that there's only friendship there, that he can't ever forgive her, and that he has no interest in her romantically anymore. We share location history on our phones, and have cameras on our house, so I know he's not lying about seeing her. My husband was my first in a lot of ways. Everything except my first kiss. So I tend to be a bit more jealous than others. I was over at my parents' house telling my mother about Val. She kept telling me not to worry, that everyone has a past, and that he obviously chose me. Dad overheard Mom and me and came into the kitchen. Are you serious right now? Is he talking to Val again? I'm going to delete him. I asked my father how he knew about Val. I looked at my mother and she was looking at him with a horrified look. He said he overheard us, and it's not right for him to talk to other women. They tried to talk around it, but I demanded an answer and they finally relented. My mother admitted that they had arranged my marriage. We've been seeing each other for a month, and I met his parents. Shortly after, his mother called me and explained about Val, how they were afraid he would go back to her, and how they wanted to do everything they could to make sure that their son married the right girl. I asked my mother why she agreed, and she admitted that they were afraid I was gay and that I wouldn't ever have children. She said, "That's why my husband was immediately invited to every holiday. That's why he was introduced to multiple relatives in a very short time. That's why they referred to him as family before he proposed. They were trying to set the tone in my mind." My head was spinning. I told them I had to go and I couldn't talk to them anymore. I drove home and felt like I couldn't breathe. I walked into our house and told my husband everything. He laughed. He actually laughed. He told me that he'd figured it out a while ago and thought I had too. He told me that his parents paid for me to go on vacation with them. They made a point of getting everyone in the family to share how much they liked me. They gave him extra gift certificates to take me out to dinner and other events. His mother cleaned his apartment and did all of his laundries while he was at work, so his nights and weekends were free for me. When he said he was going to save the money for a ring, they gave it to him, and they kept telling him what a good match I was for him. He asked his parents while we were engaged if it had been the plan to keep him away from Val, and his mother admitted that it had been. He told me that he fell in love with me while we were together. What he feels for me is real, and that he loves the life we have together. He said it doesn't matter how it started because what we have is strong and real. I don't know how I feel. I feel like such an idiot. I am furious with his parents for doing this, furious with mine for going along with it, and hurt that he didn't tell me the truth once he figured it out. I do not know if I want a divorce. My husband has been trying very hard to be supportive of me. I've told him I don't feel like talking. He keeps asking me if he can get me anything and asking me little questions to try to get me to talk, but I can't even get my feelings straight right now. I feel betrayed by every person who is supposed to care about me, and I have no idea what the hell to do. Now.
I let my entitled sister live with me and she is demanding to sleep on my bed, but I'm not putting up with her selfishness anymore. I rent a small 2-bedroom apartment. I live alone, but I use the second bedroom as my office because I work from home full time. My older sister, Lily, is 6 months pregnant and soon to be single mother. She has some issues with her apartment, in a disagreement with her landlord, and in the process of moving out, so she asked if she could stay with me for a few weeks. Of course, I said yes and that I would be happy to accommodate her for as long as she needs. She moved in last weekend, and the first thing she did when settling in was pointing towards my bed and saying, "I'll take this one." I laughed, thinking she was joking. Only later in the evening when I asked her if she needs anything else before going to bed did she mention that she was not joking about wanting to sleep in my bed. Now I'm a little bit of a germaphobe, and I am quite uncomfortable with the idea of other people sleeping in my bed. I told her that I am uncomfortable letting anyone else sleep in my bed, but I will gladly set her up with my guest bed. Then, she started guilt-tripping me, saying that since she got pregnant she's having problems falling asleep and that she needs the bigger, more comfortable bed. I stood my ground and told her I was happy to accommodate her, but I wasn't giving up my bedroom. She sulked, but she took the guest bed. That lasted exactly 2 nights before she started complaining that the bed was too stiff and that she couldn't sleep. I offered to buy a new mattress topper, but she refused. Instead, she tried to pull the "you're my brother, you should want to make me comfortable" guilt trip again. I told her that she is lucky I can even take her in, since I work 10 hours a day from home and I do value having a work environment that's private, calm and quiet. She called me selfish and accused me of not caring about her or her baby. I told her she could take the couch if the guest bed was that unbearable. Well, she did, but exactly for 1 night before turning into an absolute menace. In the second night on the couch, she made sure to sigh loudly all night, accidentally bump into things, and complain the next morning about how horrible I was making her feel. The following day, she kept making calls and talking loudly on the phone while I was working. I didn't pay attention to the actual calls and what she was saying, but later it became very clear. In the evening I started getting phone calls from most if not all of my family members. Apparently, she was ranting all day on the phone to my family about how rude and how horrible I was making her feel, trying to make my family put pressure on me just to let her sleep in my bed, like she's on a mission or something. My mom took her side and tore me a new one on the phone, saying that Lily is carrying a child and I'm being inconsiderate. She also said, "I thought I taught you better hospitality than this." I am very disappointed. My aunt called to tell me that my uncle, her husband, used to sleep on the couch and sometimes on the floor next to her when she was pregnant. Even my cousin, who I haven't spoken to in like 2 years, called to tell me I'm being selfish. My father is taking my side, telling me to ignore them and that my sister is a fuck up that she got in that situation in the first place. But I feel like my mom is giving him a super hard time in the background because he did sound kind of hesitant when I asked him to have my back. Honestly, I'm just feeling like I'm in the middle of a soap opera drama. My mom is threatening to come take Lily home, but she's giving me such a hard time and telling me I disappointed her and that she raised me better. Update: next day, my mother made the drive over yesterday. She came in quite furious, barely said a word to me, and wanted to just take Lily and leave ASAP. She had that cold, disappointed look on her face. It broke my heart, honestly. I told them that I wanted to talk and explain my side of the story. I told them both that I didn't want them to leave on bad terms. I sat them down in the living room and explained my side of things. I also decided to show them the original post, and it did help calm them down and made them second guess their opinions. Also, I did believe they were quite embarrassed to see everything written out like that, but they didn't dare to say a word about it, lol. In the end, they both agreed that my apartment is my personal space, and they understood why it was difficult for me to give up my bed. It wasn't totally smooth though. They still gave me a bit of a hard time, saying that while they do understand my side now, I could have still been the bigger person and just let Lily sleep in my bed. At least they did drop the whole "you're selfish" act. As for the rest of the family, I demanded that my sister called each and every one of them to let them know my side and calm them down. Lily was reluctant at first, but my mother gave her the look and eventually she came around and told me she'd do it on the drive back to my parents. I was honestly surprised she agreed. My aunt even called me today to apologize. That was definitely unexpected and very satisfying. Lily is now staying with my parents, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I get in a few weeks with them ranting about her being entitled in their house. Can't wait to see how they'll handle that one. Hopefully, this is the last time I'll have to deal with this. Lily still needs to move her stuff from her old apartment, so I know she's going to ask for my help. Not that I would mind, I would be happy to help her, but I'm worried she might want to come stay at my place again or use my place to store some of her stuff. Also, she might bring this whole thing up again and I couldn't be asked to deal with it once again. That's a problem for another day, though.
My coworker revealed very private information about me in a meeting. Now, she's crying and begging me not to press charges. I work an office job, and next to me sits the executive assistant 61. We don't get along well because she treats me like her daughter. I notice it every time it happens and ask her to stop, but she doesn't. Today, we were in a tense meeting discussing a sensitive topic for the company. The atmosphere was already strained among the 8 participants. At some point, our boss suggested taking a break or calling it a day. I agreed that ending the meeting might be the better option. The assistant then looked at me weirdly and, in a very aggressive tone, said, "Well, you sure know a lot about terminations." There was a brief, awkward silence before she immediately added, "Because she had in baby garbage." I was completely stunned and had no idea how to react. My colleagues were just as shocked. I just wished everyone a nice weekend, left the room, and went home early. It's true that I had in baby garbage this year, but I have no idea how she found out. Only 2 people in my life know about it, and she doesn't know either of them. Regardless, I find it absolutely unacceptable to bring something like that up, especially in a professional setting, whether it's relevant to the discussion or not. Now I'm wondering what steps I can take. We don't have a workers' council. Our HR representative is based at another location and is currently on extended sick leave. Our boss sees these kinds of conflicts as personal issues that should be resolved between the individuals involved. I plan to confront the assistant on Monday. Update: I have an appointment with a lawyer first thing Monday morning. Since we only need a sick note from the 3rd day of absence, I'll be calling in sick on Monday and discussing the next steps with the lawyer. I've also found the contact details of the data protection officer at the clinic, but I'll wait until after my lawyer appointment to proceed with that. Update 2: After a thorough search online, I found out that the partner of the boss's son actually works at the clinic where I had the procedure. I strongly suspect that this is how the assistant got hold of the information, as she regularly attends family events and birthdays of the boss's family. This seems to be the most likely explanation for how she found out. Update 3: On Monday, I had a meeting with a lawyer, and it was definitely worth it. During the meeting with the lawyer, my boss called me and asked me to come to the office for a clarifying conversation. After discussing with my lawyer, I went to the office to have the conversation. The assistant greeted me in tears and insisted that it wasn't meant like that. I took my favorite colleague with me as a witness, support, and we entered the meeting. Given the sensitive nature of the topic, I asked for minutes to be taken, which everyone agreed to. In the conversation, my boss explained that such behavior between colleagues would not be tolerated, and the assistant had to apologize and promise that it wouldn't happen again. I then asked what consequences would follow, to which he seemed confused and asked if I even wanted consequences, since an apology was given. Naturally, I demanded consequences for the assistant and clarification about the data leak. I also told the boss that it was outrageous that he was asking if I wanted consequences instead of implementing them himself, especially when it comes to something as sensitive as spreading private information. He became a bit grumpy but explained that it wasn't a data leak and that he had just slipped up. When I asked where he got this information from, he bluntly admitted that he had learned about it through his daughter-in-law. He even followed up with, "But you couldn't even tell you had the procedure." I seriously thought I was going to flip out in that room, but fortunately, I managed to stay composed. I asked for confirmation of his statements to make sure everything was understood correctly, and then had everyone sign the protocol. I got up, wished everyone a nice day, and informed him that my lawyer would be contacting him, and we'd go from there. One of the 6 colleagues who was in the meeting on Friday approached me afterward, apologized for not saying anything in the moment, and wished me luck, strength, and that someone would react better than he did if something like this happened again. I really appreciated that. 3 days later, here's where we stand. The assistant received her 3rd warning. I don't know where the first 2 came from. Today, I received confirmation that she has to leave the company. I think my boss would have preferred not to make this decision, but since the situation spread very quickly through the office grapevine, it seems to have influenced his decision. As for the clinic, the first contact was made through my lawyer. I didn't personally call or inform the data protection officer. The lawyer took care of all of that. The lady at the clinic no longer works there, as the lead doctor seems to be aware of the risks. He apologized both over the phone and in writing, and I'll be receiving a nice compensation. And with my employer, we were able to agree on a very nice severance package, and the termination of my employment is happening soon. These are all nice solutions, but there are still civil and criminal proceedings ongoing, which I can't discuss right now. The lawyer is motivated to bring further consequences, especially regarding GDPR violations. All I can say is, don't tolerate this kind of treatment.
My horrible ex accuses me of hiding income and money laundering. Her divorce lawyer demands 3 years of financials, so I granted his wish. This happened several years ago when my ex and I were going through a heated divorce, custody battle. While we were married, we had a couple of conversations about how rich people hide their assets to avoid paying taxes. I've never had enough assets to do this, but she somehow got the idea that I was and told her attorney that I was laundering money and hiding income. It was more likely the heat of the moment as divorce/custody battles often come come down to. I couldn't even afford my own attorney, so I represented myself. Her lawyer wasn't a total ass, but he clearly was out to get me, and he talked down to me like I didn't deserve to breathe the same air. One day, I get a letter in the mail from him requesting an updated income declarations form and 3 years of financials. It had a long-ass list of things to include. I own a communications tech company that was in super startup phase back then. Money was already tight. I was trying to get this business off the ground with no financing. I was finishing my MBA with scholarships and loans, so paying for copies and postage or driving this 30 miles to his office meant eating peanut butter and saltines for a week. So I called him to explain my situation. He all but called me a liar and didn't believe I couldn't afford it. I was put off by that, and I said this was taking time away from business I needed to handle. To which he replied, "Well, according to your income declarations, you're not that busy. What do you do all day?" He then said if he didn't get these documents, he would consider my previous filings as fraudulent, tell the judge, contact the DA, and also alert the state tax agency and IRS. Probably an empty threat, but I'm no lawyer. Fax is one of the services my company provides, and at this time it was relatively unknown. So I asked him if he has a fax machine. He said he had a fax, scanner, copier device, then said what law office doesn't have a fax machine? And I suddenly got an idea. Okay, I said to him, I'll put together and fax whatever I can. Okay, motherfucker, you want 3 years of financials? You got it. I scanned to PDF every receipt I could find. McDonald's receipt from 5 years ago? Fuck it, won't hurt to include it. CVS receipt? It's 3 miles long. Perfect. They get the $1 off toothpaste coupons too. I downloaded every bank statement, credit card statement, purchase orders from vendors, and every invoice I sent to clients. I printed to PDF the entire 3-year accounting journal, monthly/quarterly/annual balance sheets, cash flow statements, P&Ls. Not only did I PDF 3 years of tax filings, but every single letter I received from the IRS and state tax agency, including the inserts advising me of my rights. It took a while, but I was a few days ahead of the deadline. I made a cover page black background with white lettering. Wherever I could, I included separator pages in all caps in the biggest, boldest font that would fit on the page in landscape. 20xx receipts, 20xx taxes, etc. I merged everything into a single 150-plus page compressed PDF and sent the document using my e-fax system. Every hour or so, I received a status email saying the fax failed. Huh, that's weird. Well, they're getting this document. So I changed the system configuration to unlimited retries after failures to keep redialing until it went through. Weird, I was still getting status email failures. I'll delete the failure emails and keep the success one after it eventually goes through, I thought. Problem solved. 2 days later, a lady from his office called and asked me to stop sending the fax. Their fax, scanner, printer, copier had been printing nonstop. It kept getting paper jams, kept running out of ink, and they had to keep shutting it off and back on to print. I explained that her boss told me to send this by the deadline or else he would call the DA and IRS. Since I didn't want to call from the DA or the IRS, I would keep sending until I get a success confirmation. I suggested they just not print until my fax completes, but she didn't like that. She asked me to email the documents, and I told a little white lie that my email wouldn't allow an attachment that big. Unless her boss in writing agreed to cancel the request or agree to reimburse me for my cost to print and ship, I said I would continue to fax until they confirmed they have received every page. She put me on hold, and the attorney gets on the line. He said forget sending the financials. I said that I would need this in writing, so I will keep sending the fax until he sent that to me. He asked me to stop faxing and he would send it in writing, and I said send it in writing first and then I'll stop. Long moment of silence. Click. About 20 minutes later, I received an email from his assistant with an attached, signed letter in PDF that I no longer needed to provide financials. The letter then threatened to pursue sanctions in court or sue me for interfering with their business. Every time I saw him after that, the lawyer never brought up sanctions, lawsuits, criminal referrals, or financials again.